And we just received new information. There is a new watch replacing this one. It is also a tornado watch. This time it is expanded a little bit, covering portions of North Florida, portions of Alabama and Georgia. We'll pass that information to you as soon as we have it graphically available. Coming up next, of course, our tropical update.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Jill Brown here in the Weather Channel Forecast Center, joined by John Hope, our hurricane expert. And we are tracking a powerful hurricane, John, that snuck up on us a little bit last night as it intensified very quickly.
Well, it did intensify very, very quickly overnight, and to a degree that we have seldom, if ever, seen before. While we're a little bit relieved today to see that it's not quite so powerful as it was. The winds were up to 150 miles an hour. On the last advisory, down to 135. And we noticed the pressure went up from 916 millibars to 940, which is a significant rise, but still not enough not to make this a Category 4. It's still a Category 4.
So a Category 4 hurricane that could be comparable to Hugo.
It would have. It had to stay at 150.
So all around some good news at this point.
That part is good, but we don't want anybody to get too complacent. We figure now that everybody is in place or should be in place, and they need to stay there because the
We're speaking today. I want to talk with the folks from the Emergency Medical Services. We have Don Dolph and also Rick Timms with us. And I want to ask Don, how many calls approximately have you had so far today?
We've probably run 8 or 9 so far, mostly taking people to shelter, some emergency calls.
And again, how many trucks are out there, or how many vehicles do you have on the road?
At this time, approximately probably 15.
We have 15 units from Escambia County EMS, and we have an additional 4 units from mutual aid, such as Navy Hospital and Gulf Coast Medical.
And Rick, I understand there have been a couple of fatalities with tornadoes over nearby Mobile, and as well, one fatality off to our east. Any reports of any tornadic wind damage or any injuries because of that?
Not as of yet. We have 2 reports that we've had 2 fatalities in Mobile and 1 in Crestview. We've also just now starting to feel some of the tropical force winds, so we're not out of the woods by a long shot. This thing is just beginning. We've run, as far as the service goes, a total of about 80 to 90 calls within the first 9 hours, so that's extremely busy, but we're doing the best that we can.
And again, Don, how about the traffic out there? Were there accidents with the folks trying to get off the beach? It seemed they all tried to leave at the same time.
Right. They tried to get people to leave voluntarily early yesterday, and it didn't, quite work. A lot of people did leave, and we didn't have quite as many wrecks as we thought we'd have. Mostly, medical emergency type things going on.
Now, what would happen if, say, somebody called from the beach, provided they still have power and they needed emergency help?
Okay, the beach has been mandatorily evacuated. There should be no one on the beach. I believe Gulf breeze and probably anywhere a mile inward. They're estimating a probably 20-foot tidal surge, which is going to be devastating to the beach and downtown Pensacola and all outlying areas.
Okay, Don and Rick, thank you very much. Again, hopefully that will not be necessary. Again, Jill, and again, John, we're still looking at torrential rainfall. The rain has been incredible here. A lot of flooding. U.S. Highway 29, which runs parallel to 110, reportedly 1 to 2 feet of water on parts of that roadway south of I-10.
Well, Bill, do you see any trees blowing down or anything like that within your eyesight there?
Well, John, again, these groves of trees, we're at a field at this Lipscomb Elementary School, and there's again a broad grove of trees off to my left and also behind me. We are seeing a lot of signs blowing around, and as we talked about earlier, a lot of pieces of corrugated aluminum are peeling back from these buildings.
Bill, I think the next time we talk to you that the winds will be up a little bit, and you might see some more objects, I should think, blowing around.
Well, I suspect you're right, John. We saw a dumpster. We were not very happy with its performance, and we tied it down securely.
All righty, thank you, Bill Keneally. We'll be checking back with you again in about a half hour's time. Right now we want to go to John Thielen with Emergency Management in Escambia County. We have him on the phone line. Mr. Thielen, what has the situation been? I know earlier we had a lot of folks still on the roadways. Have we been able to clear that out?
This is morning, we said, hey, the hurricane's moving at 20 miles an hour, and you folks on the roads are only creeping along at 5 miles an hour. That's not going to work. So we pretty successfully, I think, moved those folks into shelters and got them off the roadways. And so we're trying to educate people now on how to shelter in place, how to protect themselves in their own homes, those people who have decided to stay in their homes outside the evacuation area, and if they don't live in mobile homes.
Alrighty, thank you, Mr. Thielen. Of course, we'll continue to check back with Emergency Management and Bill Keneally. Let's give you the latest information that we have right now. And John, I think we might even have some minor changes here. First off, we have the new distance is 65 miles south-southwest of Pensacola, Florida, and that's as of an update that came in about 4 minutes ago.
Well, what we're doing here now, Jill, is we're getting updates every hour. We either have an advisory or we have an update from the Hurricane Center each hour, so we'll be able to give a new position here hour by hour as the hurricane moves in toward land.
Okay, winds 125 miles per hour. Again, that's come down. Forward movement north-northeast at 21 miles per hour. And the pressure, John, has held steady last few hours?
Well, it went down to 940, and the last two consecutive reconnaissance reports we've had have had the same pressure, so it looks as if that rising pressure has steadied off now.
At this point, we can take a look at the latest radar, and you can see real well where the eye is on this one, and we'll be able to just track that coming right up and over about Pensacola. That track hasn't changed much, has it?
Right. You can see the circulation on the radar now all the way around it, and you can see some very, very heavy precipitation indeed headed inland now. So torrential rains, Bill Keneally indicated there were torrential rains where he was at shelter there, and that's certainly going to be the case throughout the entire western part of the Florida Panhandle and Alabama, for that matter, southeast Alabama.
That's something we should mention. Folks in Mobile on the weaker side of the hurricane will still likely get hurricane force winds?
They are. Yes, I think they will. I think they get hurricane force winds and gusts at Mobile. They will be primarily out of the north, the winds there.
And how about the folks as far east as Panama City?
Well, Panama City, it looks clear to us now, or we think it's almost clear, that the eye of the hurricane will go to the west of there. So at the present time, their winds are coming in onshore winds, which is helping build the water up there.
So storm surge would still be a problem that part of the east?
It will be a problem, and again, since the hurricane has diminished as much as it has, the storm surge is not going to be quite as high as we feared it might be. But I was very happy to hear John say that the beaches have been completely evacuated. It's a very good thing that they have been.
Here's the latest satellite picture, and you can begin to see now, you can see certainly where the circulation is, you can see how close it is to land.
Yes, it's still moving just about the same speed, Jill, so 3 hours from now the eye will be onshore or very close to being onshore.
And when we go back to our Saffir-Simpson scale, this is something we've been referring to, and again we had a storm on the verge of becoming Category 5 early this morning, but that's changed quite a bit. Now we have a Category 3 hurricane.
A strong Category 3, we would say, with winds 125 miles an hour, and we don't want to minimize that, but we do want to point out it is not the devastating hurricane that we feared was moving in there this morning.
But still much stronger than Aaron was that came in.
A good deal
2 months
stronger
ago.
than Aaron. We're looking at the difference between minimal damage and extensive damage.
Alrighty, and we want to take a quick look at our storm surge. Again, this may be not quite as bad as we had expected because the hurricane has weakened.
No, we've scaled down our estimate of that a little bit. When it was up to 150 miles an hour, we feared a storm surge of about 20 feet. Now we're thinking it's something in the range of 10 to 15 feet.
And people further up the road are understandably concerned with what might come in to their area once this makes landfall and continues.
Well, because it's moving pretty rapidly, the hurricane force winds will extend inland quite a ways, but the very fact that it's not coming in there with 150 mile an hour winds means that the hurricane force winds will not extend quite so far inland as seemed very possibly to be the case this morning.
So what do you think folks up around Birmingham, Atlanta, and as far north as Chattanooga can expect in the next 24 hours?
Well, they certainly expect a lot of rain and very gusty winds, but as the hurricane moves inland, it's going to be cut off of a source of energy, so we're not going to see anywhere near the intensity or strength of winds that far north as we see along the coast. But lots of rain, lots of strong gusty winds.
Okay, and in the next few hours, of course, folks that are in their homes that have not been able to evacuate should stay put.
They should stay put, and if they think they're experiencing any damage to their house and so on, they might want to go to an interior room, away from windows, cover up with whatever is available, mattresses, clothing, whatever.
Alrighty, and of course we'll keep you up to date on Hurricane Opal over the next few hours. Things get pretty critical as it makes landfall perhaps in about 3 hours' time. Stay tuned, we're going to check your local forecast and also the outlook for the weekend.
And of course our tropical storm and hurricane forecast positions provided to us by the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida.
This is what it looks like on a weather map. Currently, it's the big black hole. The isobars go around and around, and in the middle, all those isobars leading you to the lowest pressure, which is now 940 millibars. Typically on a map, we'll show you something a little bit below 1,000 millibars if it's pretty intense. So this is a very intense storm, hurricane, and we're looking at the range all the way up toward the New York City area right now. And snow actually falling in the Rockies. It's going to be an interesting interaction between a trough of low pressure coming through the Rockies and this low. What's going to happen is just as the first upper level trough pulled Opal northward enough to bring it on shore, this one's going to sling the remains of it on probably even north of the Appalachians and into the eastern Great Lakes, which is going to have some wind connected with it and rain. In fact, there could even be some damaging winds a couple of hundred miles north as it comes inland up to Birmingham and Atlanta. The forecast position almost to Chattanooga by tomorrow morning. Have this one with snow, wet snow falling in the mountains of Nebraska, not the mountains but the higher ground, and rain in the northeast.
Since the storm is over, when the eye gets there, it's half over.
It can be very deceiving.
It can.
All right, let's take a look at the Saffir-Simpson scale. We, with Aaron, of course, that came in 2 months ago, we had a Category 1 hurricane. This is now a Category 3 hurricane.
That's Category 3, down from a Category 4 this morning, thank goodness. But we want to emphasize that a Category 3, still a major hurricane, still extensive damage expected.
And we do expect to see quite a bit of damage, especially in the next couple of hours as the winds pick up. And one of the big concerns is going to be the storm surge.
And we have been hearing that folks, everybody's gone from the beach, and we're certainly delighted to hear that, because there will be a storm surge of up to 10 to 15 feet. And nobody would want to be there, and I'm afraid there's going to be a lot of damage on the beach from this storm surge. The high water and then the big waves superimposed on top of that, they're going to be very hard, I'm afraid, on some of the beach property.
There's really going to be a lot of structural damage from the storm surge, but we're coming in at the time of low tide, which may help a little bit.
That'll help a little bit, although the tidal variation in the Gulf of Mexico is not nearly as great as it is, say, around Savannah or Charleston, but that will help some.
All right, and now that we have a slightly weaker hurricane than we had earlier, folks who are up the line a little bit, up towards, well, Montgomery, Birmingham, Atlanta, maybe a little less concerned about it.
Well, we're still kind of concerned because this hurricane is moving so rapidly, and it's not how long it's over land, but it is how long, but it'll go farther inland if it's moving fast, and this is. We saw that with Hugo in 1989 when the winds hurricane force all the way to Charlotte, North Carolina.
The only good news with that is if it keeps moving that quickly, while we may have hurricane force winds or at least tropical storm force winds farther north, we hopefully won't have as much rain as we could have.
No, it rained very heavily, as Bill Keneally has just been telling us. It's torrential rain for a few hours, but the fact that it's moving right along will help.
Alrighty, and of course this is really going to play a part in the forecast for the next several days as well, and we will be checking that coming up.
In fact, we will, as we examine the next 24 hours, some crucial movement on Opal. Thank you so much.
Heavy rain and some very strong gusty winds. Let's take a look at the latest satellite picture now. Hurricane Opal, there you see the movement. It's been downgraded now from a Category 4 to a Category 3. Still a very, very powerful storm, dangerous storm, and a deadly storm with 1 death already reported. Top wind 125 miles per hour. It is moving north-northeast at 22 miles per hour. It is now just 45 miles southwest of Pensacola, Florida. By about 7 o'clock tonight, the eye of the hurricane due to pound into the western portion of the Panhandle. There's all the precipitation. On action radar, you can see the copious amounts of rainfall down there in the Panhandle area, in the Gulf area, and then follow that line through the Carolinas and getting closer and closer to the Delaware Valley. We are looking for some heavy rain. Wednesday, the 4th of October, let's show you the numbers, and then we'll check out the forecast. Present temperature reading 72 degrees. Humidity, can't get too much more than this. 96%, the barometer's 2990. It is steady, and the winds are out of the south 7 miles an hour, despite the fact that right now it is very, very still here on City Avenue. Yesterday's high 84, today 76 degrees. At 1:40 this afternoon, our low 69 degrees. The call from AccuWeather is, we're out here earlier with no rain at all. Felt like it was going to rain. Got a light spritz right now, but we're looking for a soaking rain to move in the area. The muggy conditions are just going to stay with us. Overnight low 66 degrees. The possibility of getting 1 inch of rain out of this system, maybe even a little bit more for tomorrow, Thursday. Showers and windy on and off type shower activity, but the winds tomorrow afternoon and evening will really pick up. We're looking for winds anywhere from 20 to 40 miles per hour, with gusts perhaps to 50 miles per hour, and we stay on the warm side. We're up to 82 degrees, so we're going to get a soaking rain overnight, and then strong gusty winds tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. Friday, 85, windy and warm, 85 degrees, and then Saturday, frontal system clears it all away, 72 degrees and cooler. We'll continue to watch Hurricane Opal as Opal continues its move up the coast. That's the very latest for now. Rob?
Thank you, Dave. This
Thanks for joining us. I'm Jill Brown here in the Weather Channel Forecast Center, joined by John Hope, our hurricane specialist. And John, we've been tracking Hurricane Opal, which is getting closer to land. We're maybe an hour and a half away from landfall.
Well, it's getting very close, Jill, and the edge of the eye is already coming over Pensacola. I'm sure that the winds are well in excess of hurricane force on the beaches there. The airport hasn't reported winds quite as strong as that yet, but well up in the 60s. And then from Hurlburt, Florida, we have the wind now gusting to 95 miles per hour.
Let's go ahead and look at this on the satellite picture, and you can see the darker reds actually have begun to disappear a little bit.
Yeah, this storm looks a little different than it did. As we've been mentioning the last couple of hours, we've not been able to see the eye out there. And I think it's pretty significant that the aircraft actually is no longer reporting an eye either. They had this real small eye there this morning, got down to 5 miles an hour, and it seems like the inner eye has collapsed a little bit. But when it's done that, the strong winds are extended out a little bit, especially at the east. They're finding winds of over 100 miles an hour extending out over 100 miles. So very strong winds to the east, which are going to be impacting land as the hurricane moves on to the north.
Now, do you think people then in Pensacola will actually have a point where the winds diminish and they get into the eye?
Yes, I think they will. They might not go to a complete calm, but I think the winds will definitely diminish, and then as the center passes over and moves on up to the north, then the winds will pick up from the opposite direction.
And that shouldn't take long because this is a very small eye.
No, it won't take very long, and also it's moving at a pretty fast rate of speed too. Over 20 miles an hour, that's a fast movement for a hurricane.
Let's take a look at that actually. The stats here, as of 4 o'clock Central Time, and we should get new information in a half hour's time. The winds are still 125 miles per hour. The pressure now 944
Yeah,
millibars.
so the pressure's gone up, so we don't have the hurricane there we had this morning, but still, it's a Category 3. It's going to make landfall as a Category 3.
And here's the radar. You can begin to see the eye pretty well on radar and how close it is getting to land. We're not going to see many breaks in the rain now. We could see 5-10 inches of rain.
What we're seeing there, Jill, is the eye wall is really coming ashore, the northern eye wall, and that will be some of the strongest winds of the hurricane. And now those bands coming in over there toward Panama City in that area, that's going to be, we are not getting reports now from Panama City, but we feel sure the wind is gusting over there upwards to 100 miles an hour or close to 100 miles an hour. And that's where the storm surge is coming in too. It's going to be the greatest from Pensacola over toward Panama City, 30-40 miles off the east. Again, we don't think it's going to be as high as it was earlier. We were thinking in terms of the possibility of 20 feet. Now it looks as if it'll be more like 15 feet.
And we've had some concerns for folks that live a little bit to the west, Mobile on over towards Gulfport, Mississippi. The effects there will be a little bit less than folks from Pensacola to Panama City.
Well, for one thing, Jill, the winds will be from the north in Mobile, and it'll be an offshore wind, so you won't have the storm surge problem. But still, they're going to be close enough to the center, certainly, to experience hurricane-force winds and gusts.
And again, here's the satellite, and we can't see the eye, as we were just mentioning.
No, the eye is not discernible any longer, so it doesn't look as if we're going to be able to see it on the satellite picture as it moves on in.
Alrighty, and we want to mention again the Saffir-Simpson scale here. Aaron was a Category 1. We don't have a Category 4 any longer, but a Category 3 can do quite a bit of damage.
And it is a powerful hurricane. It's worth mentioning, I think, about Pensacola, that they had gone for 69 years, I think it was, without a direct hit from a hurricane. It had been since 1926, and they got Aaron. That's 69 years, and then 2 months later, another hurricane the very same year.
How unusual is that?
Well, it's pretty unusual, but we have seen cities around the United States, and Miami in particular, that have had 2 hurricanes in 1 year.
All right, a quick look at the storm surge again. As we had mentioned, worst of it's going to be really east of the center of circulation.
East and well, right after center of circulation. So we want to include Pensacola, and then on over toward Panama City will be the highest. And then because of the geography over there in Appalachia Bay, the storm surge is going to be pretty high there because it's such a shallow water in that area.
Now we're coming in, the hurricane's coming in at the time of low tide, which will help a little bit.
It'll help, yeah, a couple feet or something like that, I think. So it's better to have it at low tide, certainly, than high tide.
Alrighty, so here we are, a satellite picture and radar. The next, basically 2 to 3 hours will be the critical time as the eye makes its way over Pensacola.
Well, 2 or 3 hours from now, the eye will be inland and moving away.
And at that point, hopefully we'll see some weakening, but let's talk about what folks can do at home if they are about to see conditions worsen where they are.
Well, the Category 3, we would think that most well-built structures would hold up, but if in the event that the windows are breached and the wind begins to blow through the house and you're concerned about the structure of the house, then you should get in an interior room under a stair perhaps, or in a closet, some utility closet, or in the bathroom, in the bathtub, and mattresses or blankets or anything like that you can use to sort of cover up a little bit.
At this point, it's too late to do anything else. It's too late to evacuate.
It is too late to evacuate. It's too late to be out there trying to board up. Don't do it now. Just stay put.
Alrighty. Next few hours, of course, will be critical. After that, we're going to see a lot of heavy rain and wind headed to the northeast, and we'll cover that in our forecast.
Thanks so much, Jill, John, and keeping us updated on what's going on with Opal. As we show you what else is going on a little bit more across the country, and then we'll home in on our forecast. Look at the amounts of rain that already filled into this area. Flooding going on around North Carolina, Sampson and Wake counties, as well as moving back through central Alabama. One could imagine why, with rainfall rates of 3 to 4 inches since 8 o'clock this morning. Now, the bad news is Opal will continue to advance northward. As it does, those areas that already have received 3 to 4 inches of rain just since this morning will continue to be aggravated by additional heavy rainfall, which could add to some more flooding in that general vicinity. Alabama, and this storm will be moving off quickly. That's the only good news we can report. Even though it's coming in with a lot of wind and rain, it will be moving off quickly, and looks like even overnight some of those winds up in Alabama and Georgia will be over 50 miles an hour. Heavier rains as well filling up into South Dakota, and lighter precipitation back farther to the north and west. We look at the entire line, and boy, it's a lot of moisture still going on. You can still pretty well, now that isn't necessarily the eye right there that we're seeing on radar. That's a huge area, but we are seeing some of the heavier bands of precipitation advancing, and unfortunately there could also be some tornadoes in some of those cells. Very typical of a tropical system like this, where it's almost on, I wouldn't call it a frictionless environment. Being on the ocean, there's no blockage there. Once it moves inland and hits all the buildings, trees, the terrain, it really starts chewing up and gets some little disturbances spinning around. That's where you get a lot of tornadoes spinning off of those areas. So be extra careful in Alabama and Georgia for the possibility of some tornadic activity. More rain continues from the Gulf Coast to even where the Pope is visiting. There's been some rain. Oh, you can't help anybody out. And there's going to be a playoff game in Denver, Colorado tonight. It has been light snow and down around 40 degrees with 30-mile-an-hour winds. What a nasty night if they're going to be playing baseball there. Let's take a tour of this line and we'll find out the rain's pretty well subsided across much of New England, but still coming in around.
Moisture coming down from that coast area, from the Pensacola area. That's where all the rain is associated with the strong gusty winds, 125-mile-per-hour top winds, as Hurricane Opal is about to slam into the western portion of the panhandle of Florida. Follow that moisture all the way up the coast, and that's what we're looking forward to in our forecast. Let's go live to Sky 6 right now. Been a hazy, dreary day. That continues. There's I-95. We're live on Sky 6, light traffic, and everyone seems to be moving along fine. Today's high, 76 degrees, 140 this afternoon, the low 69 degrees early this morning. Present temperature reading is 72. Winds out of the south, 7 miles an hour for tonight. AccuWeather says a soaking rain. The heavy stuff should move in soon. Still going to be muggy overnight with that humidity close to 100%. The overnight low 66 degrees. For tomorrow, showers and windy. The winds 20 to 40 miles per hour. We'll feel the winds from Hurricane Opal tomorrow afternoon on into tomorrow evening. We could have some gusts to 50 miles per hour. Look at the high tomorrow. 82 degrees. And then on Friday, windy and warm. The wind's not great, not as strong as that, but still warm as we get up to 85 degrees. And then Saturday, it all clears out and we drop off to 72 degrees. Well, there have been 9 hurricanes this busy season, some with a great deal of destruction. But there are special concerns tonight about Hurricane Opal. Tonight's AccuFact file takes a look into Opal. In just 6 days, Opal has gone from a brand new hurricane to a Category 4, the second most severe. It's now been downgraded to a 3. Now, there are several reasons for this. First, the warmth of the Gulf. That's the fuel which powers hurricanes. Right now, waters are about 86 degrees. Second is the very light winds high in the sky. Normally, winds are stronger and they tend to shear storm clouds, blowing them away from the center of the hurricane. A more compact center is more powerful. And forecasters say Opal is the fiercest storm to threaten the Gulf since Camille in 1969. Look at these pictures during its rampage. Camille took 200 lives and cost $1.5 billion in damage. When Opal hits land, it should be moving fast and it probably will not lose much of its strength. That, of course, is going to translate, as far as we are concerned, into high winds, some overnight heavy rain, probably an inch or so of rain, some more showers tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. Those strong gusty winds 20 to 40, maybe gusts to 50 miles per hour as Hurricane Opal stays to the west of us. So we're fortunate, but we still have to continue to track it and watch it.
All right, thank you, Dave. A coastal wildfire north of San Francisco has now burned more than 2,000 acres and 40 buildings. A dozen other structures have also gone up in smoke. Hundreds of people have been forced from their homes because of the flames. They ignited yesterday on the Scenic Point Rays Peninsula, about 35 miles north of San Francisco.
An action
on up into most of North Carolina. It just continues on up. Whatever is left of Opal, and there's going to be a lot of it left in the next couple of days, it's not going to weaken fast, will produce flood potential all the way up through the central Appalachians. We have a severe weather threat, especially in the southeast, even a tornado warning in that area. And not only are there strong winds associated with Opal, but a strong cold front coming through the Rockies, sweeping on with 50-mile-an-hour winds, and it's even been snowing around Denver. Of course, we'll keep you posted on landfalling Opal, and much more to come next.
Presenting the ultimate tire for your sport utility vehicle, the Michelin LTX. Michelin's technological advances in sidewall and tread design give it a smoother, quieter ride than you might ever expect from a 4x4 tire. Yet it's rugged enough, tough enough, Michelin enough to get you through anything. The LTX series from Michelin.
Find Michelin tires at this dealer near you because so